Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to a very special episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast. My guest today is none other than the co-founder of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, Dr. Tony Rose. Tony has been on the podcast many times as a guest since we broke up as business partners as well, when he went back in to start up his practice a little over 14 months ago. And I thought it was time that we checked back into him to see how his journey has been. It's been a bumpy journey because he's decided to start up a practice at the time that here in Australia, Melbourne, we went down into complete global pandemic shutdown as well. So Tony shares the frustrations he's had along with that. He shares what's worked for him, how he's dealt with the challenges that have been continually thrown at him as well. We talked about the importance of the 10-second, 10-minute, 10-day and 10-year rule. And then Tony also talked about what he believes to be his superpower, or the most important thing that has kind of helped him move forwards as well. Many of you gave me lots of really great feedback after the last time we chatted about this, because you might remember Tony decided to start up a practice without any staff. His whole mantra going forwards was simplicity. So we talk about what's been really great and some of the unexpected benefits of that. And then we also talk about some of the challenges, and Tony answers the question, will he eventually have some staff in the practice as well? I always love talking to my wonderful buddy, a brother from another mother. That's enough talking for me. Let's listen to Dr. Tony. See you in there.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Tony Rose, welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. My dearest friend, how the heck are you?
Buddy, it's great to be welcomed back to the podcast again. It's been some time, and gee whiz, we've had some ups and downs since we recorded last, but great to be here with you, buddy, always. And it's been great to listen to your consistency, pumping out podcasts over the past 6 months. It's been awesome.
I did, I was thinking the other day as I was going back through it, I went, oh, it's probably almost, I'd be getting close to the stage of me having done as many by myself as with us together. I would imagine there too. I mean, we did a lot that we didn't kind of publish under the Marketing Your Practice podcast. Remember all those ones we used to do as a Facebook Live first?
Yeah, totally.
Sitting on the couch. Remember we would pull the couch? I found all those videos recently. To go over as well. So, you know, we talk most days, and I've been meaning to kind of pin you down to say, let's get back on the podcast and talk all this through as well. So if you're new to the podcast, when Audio Media, as it was initially called, and when the Marketing Your Practice podcast began a number of years ago, Tony and I were business partners. Not only are we best friends, but you know, we started that also until Tony decided it was time to kind of go back into full-time practice, or full-time for chiropractors at least. And so moved in that direction, but a lot has happened since. So what I wanted to talk about today anyway, is a bit of an update on where things are up with the practice, some of the challenges over the last 6 months, new family members for you as well. So how long has the practice been open for now?
So it's been open about 14 months.
Right.
So we had our 1 year anniversary during stage 4 lockdown here in Melbourne. Which was pretty disappointing not to be able to have the fanfare and all that sort of thing. Just over 12 months, mate. But it was only, 5 months old when the COVID hit, and you know, Melbourne or Australia shit itself, and everything went to underground. So it was pretty shattering, and you know, obviously just seeing some just very consistent but gradual growth till that point, and then bang. So that was pretty tough. But yeah, 14 months and ready to build again.
Sidestep. Are you a fan of saying the COVID, or you were just when COVID hit? I'm noticing some people are the COVID.
The COVID. Yeah, I'm not sure. No, I haven't used the COVID.
I thought there was just, and then the COVID hit before. I thought I heard it. So hence me asking.
I don't know. No.
I've been noticing recently a lot of people go the COVID.
Well, it is kind of the thing, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, it is. So Tony and I are both Melbourne based here in Australia. And down, so in the region that we had some really quite bordering on dictatorship type sort of lockdowns as well. So there was what turned out to be kind of 10 or 12 week period there where our practices were reduced at least 80% in terms of we were only able to see people in kind of emergency situations, which for more established practices like mine that have been there for 20 years, there was enough of a pool there of people who were feeling cranky that we could kind of sustain that. But that must have been really difficult for you. I remember chatting with you about it. There was frustration and anger, disappointment. Tell me how that all felt.
It felt really bad. It really was a tough time from a business point of view, having, launched this practice and really trying to make waves into creating an identity in the community, to slowly building and just really nice, gradual, slow growth. It was, it wasn't whirlwind growth, but it was just consistent. To then be told by, like, it was literally someone, as he got affectionately known, Dictator Dan, one person seemingly just took everything away from a lot of people. Thousands and thousands of small businesses have gone under. Fortunately, I'm not, but it felt really, really bad. And again, I think from the philosophy of life that we live, the inside out, innate philosophy that we live, the whole COVID thing and the whole shutdown thing being so outside in, being so fear-based, I think both from a business point of view, I was, so hamstrung, but also philosophically and life, I guess, identity of where health comes from, etc., was just mind-bogglingly frustrating. It turned into anger. I was angry for quite some time. And, I really had to work on that because it didn't, necessarily serve me and it didn't serve my family at all. But, got through it. But as you said, without having that big base of people to draw upon, a database of patients that, most of my punters had only been with me a couple or a few months, if that. And so, it went down. I was only working sort of about 6 hours a week. I was doing 2 3-hour shifts just to see those people who were super acute. And with the regulations, it was, pretty much you can only see people who, if they didn't see you or me, would have gone to hospital. So that's a, pretty small percentage of people, really, if we did it by the book.
And particularly with the model that you and I practice, we don't tend to have a practice that's focused on acute care. In fact, the whole story we're telling our patients is, we talk about wellness, prevention, maintenance, whatever words that you want to use inside of there too. That tends to be the focus of our practice. So,
yeah, totally. So it went to, it was just seeing a handful of people each week, and it was many weeks, wasn't it? Like it seemed like an eternity, and it
kept
like
on the goalposts
go back.
Yeah, the goalposts continually kept on moving as well. So I think originally it was 8 weeks, then it pushed to 10. I think it was 14 in the end before we were able to have some semblance of what our normal kind of practice looked like as well.
I think for me also, it was the fact that it was winter, it was cold. You couldn't just, go to anywhere and sit out in the outdoors because it was too cold and wet. We were stuck at home. The kids are all schooling at home. We were inside for just way too long than a human should be inside for. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't earn money. There was just this, I had a pregnant partner. There was this compounding stresses that obviously when someone tells you that your business can't operate, it was almost a straw that broke the camel's back, hence the anger or hence the frustration and all those emotions that came up, which I would admit that I'm not the greatest human at dealing with those types of emotions. I'm generally an up guy, but when I'm down, I'm not a whole lot of history would say that I'm good at dealing with those emotions. So that was tough. And, we had a COVID baby. So there was, a beautiful, luckily, beautiful home birth. Lucky, I mean, we chose to have a home birth, so we didn't have to enter the hospital system, which would have been a disaster. And I really feel for those people that had a baby in hospital during the lockdown. But that was a beautiful thing. Gave us a good distraction and in the oxytocin love bubble that we had. So that was a huge positive. But yeah, ups and downs, buddy. Ups and downs, like everyone.
But because I did, there is this often drive in many of us that when we have a significant other who is pregnant, for us to want to nurture, and generally one person, excuse me, takes on the role of, bringing some income into the house, and the other one, and that was the role that you guys decided that you were going to be doing at that stage. And to want to go out there and provide that for your family, and then that to be removed too was another thing. I'm like, oh, dude, if I was in that same, I could really feel that sense of anguish. It was a perfect storm that was all building towards you. And as you mentioned too, I just want to let the audience know, you decided beforehand to kind of downsize on your house a little bit there too. When we don't need a big house with regards to what's going on and the children, then all of a sudden to downsize the size of your house and then have, 3 kids at home homeschooling and a new baby in the house as well. It's like, oh, you're not taking a trick at the moment. So,
yeah, it was, and then another frustration was obviously the fact, and listeners will remember that I've decided to open this practice with no staff, which then the state government was the one that imposed the lockdowns, and then I wasn't eligible for any state funding in compensation for the lockdowns because I didn't employ anyone. So. Yep. I got kicked in the nuts, and then no one came past and said, "Hey, how are you going?" It was, felt like a victim of violence that the person who did it never got their day in court. And so again, another layer of frustration, but no, here we are, we're out the other side now seemingly. And,
but a really important one too, is one of the things I wanted to talk about today, the structure of your business, both, from a tax accounting point of view, and then the structure of your business with staff and things, meant that you didn't get the same governmental support that I did. So I had a, more of a patient base there, and I had a structure that meant I got more support from the government as well. So, that was another factor that went through it. So if you were to look back on it all now and over those times, is there anything that you could have done differently? Like if you were talking to yourself back from 6 months ago, or even 4 months ago, and 5 months ago, when we went into that really hard lockdown, what would you have said?
Yeah, good question. Because I think one of the things that I'm grateful for is that I actually did have those emotions. So it's one of those, double-edged sword of not wanting the emotion, but grateful that I did have them. Because I think it's set me up better now for the future. What would I have done different? I would have worried less, of course. It's always easy to get caught up in the worry and, the what if stories that were going on. And I guess if I were to do it again, I'd worry less, because we're at the other end and we're all okay. It's, and is 99.9% of the time that is what happens. So yeah, I would worry less. I would get less angry. And I guess one of the frustrations also was the seemingly nothing we could do. Sure, we could go and protest, we could go and do all that, but what does that actually do? It was sort of a lot of it was just way out of our control. And that was certainly how I felt. It was way out of my control. And so, I think I'd just focus on those things that I can control. I can control the messages that I put out into my community. I can control, my nuclear family to a degree. And maybe just a bit more focus on that.
Early on in the year, I was reading a book on happiness, and one of the things they spoke about there was, we'll call it the rule of 10. And it was about kind of asking yourself the question, is this going to matter in 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years? And probably, in the situation you're in, it's still going to matter in 10 minutes and probably going to matter in 10 days. But 10 months, you get a little less confident that, probably we'll be through it by then. And 10 years down the track, then chances are that it's not going to matter at all 10 years down the track. It's interesting. That's been one of those little thought experiments that's actually been really valuable for me. It's one I'm reminded of all the time. And when I've had moments of kind of increased anxiety, worry about stuff as well, I run through that. It immediately kind of dims things down for me as well. So
I love that model. And I think one of certainly, and again, this could just be stories made up, but I think one of the differences between this oppressive, COVID kind of thing is that the ramifications could be around in 10 years' time. If we have to take jabs to go traveling, if we can't get employment because blah, 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 if the kids need to do something, are they going to have to, I think there are some long-term concerns. And again, if we run a model of an innate inside-out model, then it really is going to challenge a lot of people's philosophy. And are you walking your talk? And is this important? How important is it? What price do we put on it? Do we put a bigger price on traveling the world versus our own health and our children's health? So I think, I love that model, because I think most of the time, most things don't go past 10 weeks. But in this case, I feel that there are going to be some long-term ramifications to our freedoms, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder with that. So we've talked about this, and I've mentioned a little bit on the podcast before. So Lauren, my wife, Lauren, she shares a lot of the same thoughts that you do, and probably even a little deeper into it than what you are. And so I watched how that is affecting her emotionally, because she's often stressed about it and is frustrated. We love to travel each and every year, and it's going to be some time before we are traveling overseas again too. I remember so clearly back to September 11, and when the Twin Towers got smashed into, and people saying that world travel will never be the same again. It's going to be difficult to travel, the process we're going to go through. And we adapted and moved on, and world travel, so sometimes the queues are a little longer, and we, get retina scans and fingerprint scans and those kind of things like that too. But, it didn't really change. I remember there being times after global financial kind of meltdowns that, the world. So I don't know. And I tend to agree with you that, things will change in the future. One of the things I've been trying to be aware of recently, and you and I have talked a little bit about this as well, is when we imagine into a future, we have to remind myself that I'm making up a story, because it's the future. So I don't know. And so I'm trying to walk a point between not being ignorant and ignoring what the future might be, but imagining to a future where I can't travel without any form of vaccine, that, I possibly can't even work with a chiropractor. I can't work as a chiropractor without vaccinating myself. All those things, none of them make me feel good. None of them empower me. And so I'm just choosing to go, if I'm going to make a story up, I'm going to make up a story that's going to serve me a whole bunch better as well. And I am aware that's a tricky tightrope to walk there, where I'm not just sticking my head in the sand and kind of ignoring things as well. What do you think about that? If you're going to make up a future, just make one up that serves you better.
I love it, but there is a fine line about just putting your head in the sand. When the CEO of Qantas comes out and says no one's traveling on my planes without a jab, I mean, that's not a future. That's a reality in the now. And I guess we've got to weigh that up and go, yep, that's going to serve me. And I'm sure there's going to be ways that we can. I'm hopeful that there's ways that we can get around that stuff and still participate in this society, no matter how big, whether it's your local family or your town or the world, that we can participate as a willingly voluntary individual in that, without losing our autonomy as a human being, without losing the right to choose our own healthcare, without losing the right to choose what goes in and out of our own bodies. I'm hoping that there's going to be a way, and I'm hopeful. I'm not overly confident, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Look, I'm hopeful in a capitalistic market of choice inside of that. Now, I don't know, because I also know that I get fed the information that, of what I interact with on the social media forums, but also across, it did seem that, so in case anybody missed it, because we've got peeps listening from all over the world, Qantas, most of you will know, is our major airline here, but certainly it's a global, very well-known airline. They came out and said, listen, for international travel, if you wanted to travel on our planes, you're going to need to have had the vaccine, which was, we're not even into, some areas vaccines are being released, but I don't know to what extent. But the backlash to that seemed extraordinary, across, the talk shows here, the mainstream media, those kind of things there too. I was very interested. And so with those kind of statements too, in some ways I feel that they throw those statements out there, but let's just watch and see with regards to that too. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting that they came out and said. And, the fact of the matter is, even here in Australia, it's virtually impossible to get out of Australia anyway at the moment. That's getting on a plane, you have to have super good reasons. You have to quarantine and then trying to get back into the country again afterwards. So, it's a
tricky one. But I love that model 10. What is it? The rule of 10, the model of 10, or whatever we call it.
We'll call it one of those two there too.
We'll call it them.
So let's get back into the no staff thing, because this, I mentioned to you also beforehand, was I got more feedback about that from listeners, that they were super interested in this model, that they, felt like that they'd overcomplicated things, that one of the biggest challenges in practice was staff. And sometimes that staff was other health professional staff, associate chiropractors, whatnot there too, front desk staff, all those kind of things, with many of them reaching out saying, I'm going to give that a go. I like the simplicity of all of that. So 14 months in, with some speed humps along the way, how are you feeling about it so far?
Yeah, really good. It's been 80% wonderful, which is great. It allows, and I guess it's just where I am in practice and life as well. I'm not wanting to see hundreds and hundreds of people a week, which would be a lot harder. So the choices of how I want to practice, the style, the feel of my practice being more like someone coming into my lounge room, being invited into my home and getting adjusted, is different to any practice that I've had in the past. And so that allows having no staff to be a wonderful thing. And to actually, for me, it actually allows me to have deeper relationships with people, because I'm spending that more time with them to develop, but I'm also having a different relationship with them. It's personable. I'm not handballing anything off to someone else to fill a void or to do anything like that. And that can be a great thing. I'm not saying it's not a great thing, but in my model, it's been great. There's been a couple of times where it's, a few times where I've gone, oh, gee, a CA right now would be wonderful. Things get backed up, and obviously I can't see as many people per hour, which means there's less spots for people in critical hours, which sometimes means, gets a bit hectic, and that's okay. I'm happy with that, because people know that once they come through, my whole focus is them. So overall, wrapped. Will there be a point where I'll get staff? Yeah, probably. But I'm a ways off that. I reckon I could grow another 30% before that happens.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to having that problem. I'm looking forward to, and what I'm looking forward to is making choices in the practice because I want to, not because I feel I need to. And I think that's, I guess if I looked back at practice over the time, there were so many things I did because I thought I had to. Whether it be the way I communicated with people, whether it be the way I adjusted people, whether it be the way I set the practice up, the fee structures, the times I was open, there was a sense that that's just how it's done because that's just how it's done. And, I want to rewrite some rules for myself to do it because I want it that way, not because I need to do it that way.
It's interesting listening to you. Having no staff there takes away some of the safety nets that are not a bad thing that they get taken away. Like if I'm running a little behind and I've got Mackenzie up the front desk, I'm like, oh, Mackenzie will talk to him. She'll chat. They'll have an engaging conversation up there. There's that safety net there for me, where if they're sitting up the front in that reception area by themselves, just staring at a magazine or at the wall, that's not quite as pleasant for them. So really, I shouldn't be running late in the first place, or not to an extent where it would kind of worry. So it does remove. And then many times we've both chatted with other practitioners who have such issues in around the fees that they charge that they don't want to talk about the money. It's because they don't value it, so they handball it on to somebody else. Again, that's not a good safety net to have. Also, is that if we're not if we can't value it and communicate it, let's not expect somebody else to. So it's nice the way that it kind of, does remove some of those.
It is very transact. Like people, they are paying me, and there's something quite beautiful about that. And I think for some people would be confronting, so, but I find it a beautiful thing.
Are you doing, I don't know, I can ask you, are you doing kind of blocks of visit, or is it all per visit pay?
Yeah, no, I do blocks.
Yes.
So people can choose whatever they want to do. They can pay per visit, or they get a small discount when they buy a block of, I just do 5 and 10 visits.
Right. And what percentage of the peeps are buying blocks of?
Like certainly the majority of people at this point are paying per visit, but it's getting bigger and bigger. And again, it's just what the focus is, isn't it? I'm still sort of working out those phrasings and ways of introducing fee concepts to people that make it a no-brainer that people want to do it now. So I'm getting better at that, and more people are taking it up, which is great.
So we're, at the time that we're recording this is the end of 2020. What things, I'm going to ask this in two parts there too. What things have not worked that you thought might have worked, and what things have you been surprised that worked that you thought might not have? Is there anything that kind of comes to mind?
Look, I think it's not a very practical answer, but the truth answer is that the things that haven't worked has always been me.
Yes.
So, I wanted to have this examination that was going to be, sort of a state-of-the-art, objective, score-based thing, and it's been as good as I've implemented it. Because again, part of running a staffless practice is if a new patient turns up and they may turn up 10 minutes late, which patients do. It means that I have less time, which means then the person who's next is going to be sitting out there for 10 minutes on their own with no one talking to them, as you've just said. So I tend to skip a couple of tests, or, rush a portion, or don't, just try and stay on time, which is not great. And therefore the effect of that examination or that report of findings or that whatever it is I'm doing is minimized. So sticking on task, I think, is my biggest problem in making the first visit, make that a wow, gather all the information, all that sort of stuff, so that then I can present the findings in a way that is empowering and giving someone a vision as to where we can go together as a partnership.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to touch on that too, and I'll put a parenthesis in here to kind of help our listeners out, to bring them back to it. One of the things that's really powerful in marketing is anything that differentiates you from other people. And one of the things that can do that is often what's referred to as a signature system, your way of going about things. And one of the things that we lack often as chiropractors is what we're telling our patients often that, hey, listen, it's not just about the pain. The pain is part of it too, but we really want a healthy spine and nervous system. But we don't have great ways often of kind of measuring that. I often enviously look at the orthodontist, that someone comes in with crooked teeth, we put the braces on them, we straighten them, and out they go. And yes, it can cost 8 to 15 grand there too, but the before to after is very, very obvious. It's clear whether you've reached it. It's also clear when you haven't reached it as well. And we lack some of that too. And you and I discussed in the early days, you'd really put together a wonderful examination of a whole bunch of functional tests, from even things as simple as kind of sit and reach to the scanning technologies that you use, that at the end of it, we would be able to measure, their health structurally of their spine, their musculoskeletal system, their nerve system as well. That was really going to be the ROSE system. Did you know? Is that what you were thinking still in the end? It was
totally the ROSE system, and I came up with the neurostructural index.
Yep.
There's sort of 5 components to it. There was 2 or 3 tests under each component, and it's awesome. I love it, and I've been tweaking it and adding this, taking away that. This doesn't seem to give me enough information, et cetera, et cetera. So, but it only works when you do the whole thing, of course. And so, if I'm running late, I'll go, well, I won't do the sit and reg test today. I'll do it next time. And then of course, next time it doesn't happen. So, it's a procedure, like all procedures. They only happen if you follow the procedure.
Yeah.
And look, it has been great because it's also tested me of what's really important, and making sure that I do deliver on those things that are really important to track someone's health and well-being. And so, it's under a constant sort of improvement or refinement, but it's me.
What a concept. It only works when I do it.
Hey, who would have thunk?
What about any surprises of things that did work that you didn't expect to work, or that kind of popped up? You're like, I didn't think I'd be doing it that way, but that's really great. Anything like that?
No, probably not. Nothing that's kind of really surprised me. No, I wouldn't say so. But certainly from a technique point of view, I'm doing a lot more, a lot more gentle work, using the blocks a lot more than I ever have before, some SOT protocols, and combining that with the Thompson stuff. And just maybe from on the table things I'm doing a little differently than I probably would have envisaged at the beginning. But again, I'm in the past, I've had very much, this is the way I do it. Whereas now I think the room of being here on my own and having longer visits than I've ever had in my career, it's allowed me to really look at the person and, all right, this is going to work best for this person, and not just be everyone gets Thompson or everyone gets this. And that's kind of been cool as well.
Yeah. So
I know that the technique purists would say that just adds confusion and uncertainty, but I've actually found that to be the opposite. But interesting.
Yeah. What are your plans for 2021? What are you looking forward to implementing, sinking your teeth into?
Yeah, 2021, I'm really going to, I just shot a video to send out to my patients saying, that I wish that 2021 for them is a sign of a new start. And that's what it is for me. And really, I just had a sign writer here to put some signs up I really want to put the stake in the ground as far as what I do and what I stand for, and just be more blatantly obvious about that. A lot of my messaging, whether it be through social media or through email or whatever, however I'm putting my message out there, tends to be, it's a little bit sensitive to, what we can do as chiropractors here in Australia. So I'm certainly going to be putting some more messages out there about how I view the world and how I view health, and making it very obvious about what I stand for more than I've done in 2020.
Yeah. So back in one of the early, in fact, it'll be kind of released, maybe one episode, 182, I go through a summary of a guy by the name of Peter Hanlon wrote a book called Primal Branding. And it's interesting because most of us, when we kind of think about brand, we think about, what's my logo? What colors do I use? Those kind of things. And he says there are 7 elements to primal branding. And these are the kind of elements that mean that our brand becomes a preferential choice. Now, one of them is the icons, which is the logos and bits and pieces. But the number one that he talks about being most important is our creed. Sharing our creation story, which is, why do we believe what we believe? Exactly what you said beforehand, is sharing that with our community. And it's something that I don't do enough of as well, even on the podcast through here with what I stand for. And it's certainly not something that I do enough inside of my practice. But when you think back to, any of the celebrities, influencers, authors, movie stars, you pick it, that you have an affinity with, I bet you know a little bit about their creation story. Now, where did they come from? What were their struggles? What were their journey through there? And it's one of those things that, when you meet a stranger at a party and you're connecting with them and you get a bit of their background story, we feel more connected to people. So great, buddy. I think it's a great story to share. I think it will be really helpful for you to be kind of putting more of that out there too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and in various forms as well. And I have been have been a little lapse on my videos of late as well. So reconnecting with those, I came out of the blocks all guns blazing, and but for the last couple of months, I've been down on my content creation. So looking forward to a break, get down to the beach, have a surf, and then back into 2021, ready to rock and roll.
I want to talk through 4 points here with you to get, I was to have a podcast interview earlier this morning, and unfortunately the guy who I was going to chat with couldn't make it. And he does some interesting work with other consultants, but there was a model that he had that I thought is, I'm going to model and build on, because I think it will really help the work that I do with community influence as well. I wanted to share it with you this morning and kind of brainstorm some of it as well. So he has these 4 points that he talks through to really positioning yourself as a thought leader, building influence in your community. They're my kind of words, not his as well. The first point is this, is a radical focus on who you can deliver the most value to at the highest price, which is really, he's talking about niche marketing there.
Yep.
I like that idea of a radical focus. Who can I deliver the most value to at the highest price? I think it's not a question that I feel that I haven't answered it like that as well, but to, because sometimes, when you and I were talking at different conferences on the podcast and stuff like that, we would often say to people like, who do you love working with and who can you help? That's the way that we would ask that question. But it is different to say inside of that in terms of who can I deliver the most value to at the highest price? What do you think about when I say that statement? What comes to mind?
I initially love it. Then I think that, because when we used to teach, and you still do teach that principle of, who do you love working with? It's also who do you get great results with, and who do you love having coming in at the same time? So, I could deliver, it could be the fact that I could deliver the highest value at the highest price to the elderly. And I actually don't really like working with the elderly. So I think there need to be something of also your enjoyment level.
Yes. Yeah, it does miss that out. I would contend though, I'll make a note on that too.
Or is it that you would generally give the most value to the people that you like working with anyway? So it kind of counts that out.
I would say that if we really are talking about this concept of the most value, I would say that you can't give the most value to elderly people because
heart and soul's not into it.
Heart and soul's not in it. And that's the definition of the most value is, whether it's present time consciousness, who can I be there for? But I think it can certainly be kind of elaborated inside of that too. It kind of takes on a little bit of, Seth Godin's concept of, who's the section, and I'll paraphrase this not nearly as beautifully as what he says it, but really is, who's the section in the group in my community who I'm obsessed with serving? Like that when I see that word, that radical focus as well. And I think that a lot of practices make that mistake of just, obsess over this group of people. If you show up for them each and every day, and again, with this case, with a radical focus on delivering the most value I possibly can, it's a nice place to start with, because it also, in the times of growing a practice, and so when I think about growing a practice, I think about kind of growing my business with community influence. And so there's times of like, what do I do next? Overwhelm, I can make it about me, all those kind of things. But when I shift back to go, nope, today I'm going to just deliver massive value to some peeps. It's free. It makes me light. It's all those kind of things there as well. The second point that he has here is powerful positioning that puts you above the competition. What are your thoughts on that?
So did you say parcel positioning?
Powerful positioning.
Powerful positioning that puts you above. Absolutely. Huge.
Yeah.
I think that is huge. And I think that is, why would someone come and see you when there's 75 other chiropractors within 5 kilometers?
Yeah.
Why do they want to choose me? And for some, it'll just be my personality. For some, won't choose me for my personality. But for some, it'll be the thoroughness with which I run my examinations. I don't do well enough. In fact, that's something that I need to improve on, is letting the community know my process, the Rose method of assessment, and that it is so thorough. So I think, definitely huge.
Because it's interesting inside there, because in one way or another, what that phrase tends to bring up in lots of people I've spoken to is some form of fear and or imposter syndrome. Well, I'm not really better than anybody down the road, and I'm not, I don't know, like, position myself. And it doesn't, because it's a very relative form as well, but there's definitely, and we know this when you and I and Kirby have all worked in the practice, is that there are people that want to see each of us that won't see the others. Like we are the perfect person for some people and the nightmare chiropractor for others.
Yep.
So the concept of you being above the competition, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be above the competition for everybody. So I want to kind of remove that from people and remind you that, hey man, some people love Beyonce, some people don't. Like there are people out there that think that she's the worst in the world and the most, but so I always go,
she doesn't stop producing music because some people don't like her.
Yeah. So the concept of, I'm really putting some thought into how I can put that in a way that says, whether it's, who can you be the hero for that, and it goes back to that same different way of thinking about that first question of the most value. But positioning, part of what is positioning is one, making sure you're telling people what you do. Having those concepts of your signature system that you talked about before, the Rose method, letting people know those things. That's something that's kind of missed as well. Yep. His third point there is a step-by-step marketing plan to turn strangers into clients. Nothing fancy about that, but that's showing up each and every week.
And I think most health practitioners can do better at that.
Oh, absolutely. But you could see once you decided 1 and 2, 3 gets easier.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do there too. And then this fourth one here is often really ignored too, just more confidence in their business. That's how much, if we just had more confidence in what we do, how much easier would it be for us to see and deliver the value? If we had more confidence in what we do to put together our signature system, all those things too.
Yeah, which comes back to the number one practice multiplier, doesn't it? Just be great at what you do. Yeah. And if that takes, which will then obviously give you more confidence, and vice versa, whether that's doing more training, whether it's diving into a different topic, whether it's learning a new technique, whether it's learning a communication skill, whether it's joining community influencer to learn more marketing, whatever it is, there's absolutely.
Yeah. The confidence thing is interesting. I'm going to have this chap on the podcast at some stage. I don't know if I've actually told you about Miguel. It's a guy who's a community influencer coaching member, and he's totally okay with me to share this. I've asked him beforehand. Miguel's been in practice, I think coming on 40 years. So he's in his late 60s, and as excited about practice as ever, and doesn't want to retire. And he says, I'll just finish up when you drag me out of there. And so we had one of our office hour coaching calls there too. And we got towards the end of the questions. And I said to Miguel, Miguel, tell me, like, where does this passion come from? How have you maintained that? And he answered it really quickly. He knew exactly what it is. He says, Angus, I change what I do about every 8 or 10 years in a major way. He said, when I first graduated as a chiropractor, I was super straight, Gonstead practitioner, hand only, spine only, those kind of things there too. He said, and then all of a sudden I decided I put some therapies inside the practice. So he said, I had kind of everything going on, massage and ultrasound and heat beds, all those kind of things. He said, I then did that for 10 years. And then I realized that insurance was kind of dying as well. He said, and my body was starting to get a bit sore as well. So he went from there into a super low force instrument adjusting. He's done that for 8 years. And now he's just in this last couple through here started to put some laser into his practice as well. And so that has been an enormous success for him. And then the weekend just gone, he's now decided he's going to go do the CAREC certification.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
We get so scared. I get so scared of change as well. And when I see what the success, the enjoyment, the freedom that it's given characters like, Miguel moving forwards, it really inspires me as well. In the same way that too, this is a long way of me coming around of how inspired I am with you jumping back on the horse again and to do things night and day different. You know, when you think about the time we had together, working together in terms of life chiropractic was very kind of part-time-ish for you because of everything was going on. But if you think of your last practice back over in Adelaide, which was open plan, super high volume, you know, compared to where you are now. So how are you, I guess, in kind of summing it up, so far 14 months into the journey, still feeling great? Any more thoughts in terms of how the experience has been for you, and what advice would you give to peeps who are perhaps wanting to make some radical change?
Yeah, we've spoken about this a lot, and I just think the quality of your life is determined by the number of decisions you make. Not the decision you make, but the number of decisions you make. So just make a freaking decision. And I think that is what I would consider the most powerful thing that I've learned in the last 10 years, is making that decision. I made a decision to leave life chiropractic. Didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
That then led to Adio Media developing. That then led to other things opening up. And then to make a decision, you know what? No, that's it. I'll open up a practice, you know, just to make the decision. And life will unfold. And that's, I think, what I'm loving about this is coming into this end of 2020, into the new year. I'm going to make decisions. And again, I'm not worried about what the decision is. I just need to make it. Sitting on the fence or playing the I should do this or should do that game, that is where life stagnates, and that is where practices stagnate, and that's where frustration sets in. And again, that, you know, nothing more obvious than the stagnation of lockdown and my frustrations. And so, just to make some decisions, there's a lot of practitioners out there who are doing the same thing just because they do the same thing, just because that's what they've always done.
Yeah.
And then Miguel, take that example and go make a decision to change something, and change something. It almost doesn't matter what you change. Get a new front desk.
Yeah.
Get new lights in. Get a new table. Get a new cat. It doesn't matter. Just do something different and make a decision. I don't know if that makes sense, or if that resonates with anyone, then great. If it doesn't, great.
Buddy, I'm very excited to watch and see what happens through 2021, and hearing you kind of sharing more of you out into the world and telling them more about why you do what you do as well. So as always, buddy, thank you for sharing with me today. Thanks for all that you do. You're just a dear friend, and I love you a lot. And I know lots of our listeners will be really glad to have kind of caught up with you as well. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And we'll do this again sometime in 2021 and see what's evolved since then.
Would be a pleasure. Thanks, mate. You're awesome.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.